Today I'm meeting with Jonathan Sherman. He is a licensed marriage and family therapist.
Yep.
He has an office in American Fork, and he deals with all kinds of different issues for people. I'm going to go ahead and just let him take it away and go ahead and give him any kind of contact information that you might want to give the viewers.
All right. My name is Jonathan Sherman. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. My website is marriagenv.com, and I work with issues of marriage transformation, parent training, and self-mastery. Self-mastery includes anything from addiction, mental health issues, just figuring out life stages and goals and figuring those things out. But the thing that I'm known most for, of course, is marriagenv.com and the work that I do as a marriage therapist with couples.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we were talking a little bit off camera about some of the different issues that people go through in a marriage, some of the things that are the common challenges in marriage, like not having enough time to really sit down and work on your relationship. And you had pointed out something that I think is great, that if you don't have time to, deal with a session with you, for example, mm-hmm. then you're not going to have time for a relationship, and you're basically not going to have time for a marriage. Mm-hmm. And you shouldn't have a marriage if you're not going to put in the time. And
yeah, it's always amazing to me. People don't have the time or the money to come do counseling, and I understand it's not a cheap proposition. Sure. But boy, I'll tell you, it is a fraction of the cost of a divorce, and that's just the financial cost.
For sure.
Let's not even get into the emotional cost for yourself, the other person,
Your
kids, the extended family, friends who get caught in the midst.
And the divorce is a gift that keeps on giving. I know that. I mean, you just keep
really
dealing with it.
And the amount of the time that counseling takes compared to the time that divorce takes is also a fraction of that time cost of divorce. So it really is. But one of the problems I think most people have is just human nature. Is we tend to focus more on cure than prevention. Benjamin Franklin talked about that years ago, and he said an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
Sure.
And that's one thing where a lot of times people will come to counseling at the point of crisis, and that's fine. That's what I'm here for.
Sure.
And I can help people really turn around what seems like an impossible or bad situation into something that not only is fixed or better, but what I always talk about is let's create. If we're going to do this, let's not just patch things together in a triage moment.
Right.
Let's go from triage to
fix
therapy
the problems
and
before
coaching.
They become problems. Yeah.
Right. And even if we're turning around a bad marriage or a really difficult situation, let's turn it around in such a way that it becomes not just fixed, but it becomes a great relationship. Right. That's what marriage envy is all about. It's not about envying somebody else's marriage. It's about creating such a marriage that there's nothing left to envy. Ours is the enviable marriage.
Right.
I want my clients to look at my wife's and my marriage. We've been married for 24 years. Mm-hmm. We've got a great relationship. But I want my clients to look at my relationship and say, you know what, Jonathan and Kara, they've got a great marriage, but nowhere near as good as ours. Right. I want them to have that sense of pride about their marriage. And a lot of people, when they're in their situations, they feel like that's just a pipe dream. That's just la la land. That's never going to happen for us.
Right.
The great news, the reason why I can be so confident is not because I'm cocky, not because I'm arrogant, because the skills work, the strategies work, the structures work. And when you do work that works, well, things work.
There's something you were saying about being more proactive, dealing with an ounce of prevention and being the equivalent of a pound of cure. And I think that's just a great way to think, and obviously a very profound statement. And you said Benjamin Franklin is the one that said that.
Yeah.
If when you went to the doctor, you always go to the doctor because you're sick.
Right.
And if you go to a doctor or a mental therapist, and sometimes people have, a kind of a suspicion or a fear that people are going to find them sick when they're not sick. Therapy is more about fixing problems, dealing with people's issues, not keeping people coming back.
Right, that's a really good point, and I know that I work with referral sources, families, clergy, and certainly family clients who come here, and they're worried about that very thing. Mm-hmm. Is this something where, and how they'll always ask, how long is it going to take? And well, of course, that's a very fair question. How long is it going to take? It's also one that's very hard to answer because everyone's so different.
Right, you can't fix the issue if you're focused more on the end versus recognizing what you're dealing with right now and actually fixing it and getting into the weeds, so to speak.
Right.
Really figuring out the problem. You're going to just be. It's kind of like, when's this going to be over?
Right.
That's not going to be a healthy way to figure out and deal with a problem. You're just kind of masking it over.
Right. That being said, it's still a fair question to know how long it's going to take. And I always let people know is that we'll do as much work as we need, but we also won't do more work than we need. That's part of my ethical stance. I think it's also a good business practice. When people know that they can come in and get outcomes that they need, and we're very strategic, we're focused. This isn't just, sometimes people have a misconception, and about going to couples counseling, that you're just going to go vent and argue with an audience member. Okay?
Right.
And unfortunately, some couples counseling has been that. At least that's what some of my clients, when they've had previous counseling, they'll tell me that's what it was. Here, it's very strategic. It's very skills-based, and we're very evidence-based practices, what we use. I'm not interested in what the latest pop psychology mumbo-jumbo thing on some TV show says this is what you should do in your relationship. I only care about what the research shows,
Right.
what evidence shows that so we can actually get results, we can get outcomes.
Yeah.
If we do the work works. That's the good news.
Yeah.
And lots of times people just don't know what the work is to do, and so a lot of couples are beset with a lot of relationship myths that are out there about how a relationship should work, but they've never really known where or how to clarify, or even that there is something to clarify, because these myths are so pervasive. One of them, most common ones being, well, if he or she really loves me, then they'll just do X, Y, or Z, or they should just know. Or if we love each other enough and we work hard enough, then it'll just work. And that sounds good, but here's where it falls apart. It's not practical, but it does sound like it should be right. And there's loving each other enough is important, and working hard is important. But the analogy I give is out in our backyard, we have this huge Chinese elm tree. And let's say the zombie apocalypse comes tomorrow, and I send my youngest, my 15-year-old son out there and say, pal, you've got to go out there and you've got to chop that tree down, because we need fuel, we need shelter, we need weapons. And he loves us. He's a hard worker. He's going to have the best intentions, and he's going to do whatever it takes to make this happen. And then I give him a butter knife.
It's not going to work.
It's not going to work. It won't
Can't
matter.
cut down the largest tree in the forest with a herring.
Yeah, exactly. It's not going to work no matter how much he loves us, no matter how hard he works. There is no substitute for the right tool.
Right.
And that is really the focus of a lot of the work that we do here. It's not about fixing screwed up people. It's not about fixing screwed up marriages. It's about giving good people who care
proper tools to deal with issues.
This to me is just a marriage Home Depot.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's a great way to look at it. And if people recognize that more, I think people would be more open to counseling. Another thing we talked about, in the course of me kind of explaining why we have the channel and why we want to talk to mental health therapists, and why it's all about the people we talk to, and not about, the Eric or Brian show. We're just the person that kind of keeps the conversation going in front of the camera, so you're not talking to a camera in an empty room feeling awkward, so, but we have talked to a couple of sex therapists, and that's, as you were saying, any licensed marriage and family therapist is going to be able to talk about some of those issues too. That's something that I think, as we've talked to more mental health professionals, I just think that's just such a cool area to be able to deal with those things and talk about that stuff, because it's so hard for some people to talk about that aspect of their life.
Right.
And some people have trauma from the past that if they don't properly address it with somebody that gives them a good tool, if they're out there trying to cut down a tree with a butter knife, the tree is the problem, obviously, that they had in their past, and if they're out there trying to cut it down with a butter knife, that's never going to work. That tree is going to haunt you forever. It's going to cause issues in your life, and so I really respect that in the profession that you guys have, that you're able to talk about these things to people that can just massively benefit from.
Yeah, I think a lot of topics, sex definitely is a really awkward topic for a lot of people to talk about.
Sure.
It's very intimate. It's very private. We live in a very hyper-sexualized culture that's also very hyper-ignorant about what actually healthy sex is and what real intimacy is. A lot of times we see a lot of intimacy based around sex in the media, but we don't actually see what the real emotional intimacy is behind that is. And so there's a lot of these problems around it, but the nice thing about this work is that while my clients may be feeling uncomfortable or awkward, I'm completely comfortable in dealing with anything that they might feel awkward. To me, this is my everyday. This is normal to me. There's nothing to be ashamed about or embarrassed about. Whatever it is, that whether it's sex or something else, or how they're handling conflict, or how messed up. They may feel, I don't see people as messed up. I see people as, here's a courageous people coming to my office willing to talk to a complete stranger
Sure.
about some of the hardest things that are going on in their lives. I see that as courageous. And
Yeah.
even though we're dealing with problems, the focus is very much on building solutions, not about fixing problems. Even though we are fixing problems, but that mindset is different.
Right.
So it's more about a strength-based approach. What's right with these people that we can use those strengths to leverage and work against what they're having difficulties with.
Sure.
And that takes that takes a lot of the pathology, dysfunction, screwed up feel around it, which is one of the barriers to going to counseling, because you only go to counseling because you're a psycho or you're a mess or you're crazy or you can't hack life. There's a lot of stigmas around it, and I understand that. I think most people, when they come here, they definitely start to go, man, this is not what I thought it was going to be.
Right.
We're actually getting results a lot sooner. I mean, in a few sessions, things are getting better. Some people take longer, some people take shorter. But the good news, it doesn't take anywhere near as long to create the solution as it did to create the problem.
Right.
And so there's lots of ways of going about that, lots of ways of fixing things and changing things that we probably don't have time to talk about today, but we can certainly talk about more length at other times.
And we could even, like I said, I wanted to pop over and do another one of these videos with you, because I think a lot of people are going to find some good things in these videos. You certainly got a wealth of information and just really good ideas and things that people could learn from.
Well, and if your viewers are interested, I'll just give them a little snapshot if we want to do future videos about specific topics. We can talk about, when we think about why do people come to counseling, they come to counseling because of these 5 C's: communication, conflict, connection, which could be sex and time, children, and cash. These are areas that couples have a lot of conflicts over, and other areas too. So there's lots of methods and strategies and structures.
And especially for the people that have dealt with divorce or have like a second family.
Right, that's one of the most
that's
common.
That's another whole multifaceted.
The step family is is the most common family form that we have.
Yeah.
A lot of marriage strategies and parenting strategies that people learn aren't geared towards the step family dynamic.
Right.
And that's a really important one to learn. So that's a big part of the work that I do as well. One of the things that we can certainly talk about another time is what I call the Our Way plan. These 10 key areas, such as rules and roles, communication, conflict, parenting discipline, sex and intimacy, money and finances, extended family and friends, time together, marriage mastery, and mentoring and relationship maintenance and enhancement. These areas that we can talk about, that each one of these, imagine that these were chapters in a book. Right. That what we do is we create a custom playbook for every couple or family, so that when they have a conflict that comes up, they actually know how we handle this problem. So it's not my way versus her way, or my partner's way, which is usually what's happening.
Both going to work on.
Right, because most couples, what happens is they're here fighting about whatever this topic area is, and they don't realize it, that they're playing off my way versus her way. This is like, as we were talking about earlier, this is like showing up to a football game. Let's say you and I want to play football. Right. And I come with a baseball bat, you come with a volleyball net, and instead of playing the game, you and I waste all the game time arguing about how you're supposed to play the game. Right. When there's clearly defined roles that work, and rules that work. And so with couples, what we do is, I'm not going to say you need to fight the way that I tell you to fight. I want the 3 of us to figure out what's going to be the plan that you guys can agree on fully. And so as we move forward, we can be really clear, because a lot of couples have done compromise and negotiation, stuff like that, but they didn't really truly agree. Maybe they agreed in the moment
to get the argument
over.
Tired,
where they're tired, or
asleep,
or they just give in and give up, or
I'm sick of talking about it. You win, right? No,
and so what happens is that agreement becomes resented later, and it's sabotaged, and it's never really held. And so a lot of couples are frustrated because they'll say, "Well, yeah, we've talked about this.
Yeah,
and I came up with these rules before." Right. But they didn't know how to make them stick and how to have them go long term. And so we talk about not only what are the rules we're going to create, but how to get past the barriers of not keeping them.
Because they'll have buyer's remorse is what it's called. Yeah, when you make your divorce agreement and you stipulate, and then later you're like, I don't really like that part.
Yeah.
Even though you know that was the best choice.
Right.
Given everything before you.
Yeah.
You still have that buyer's remorse. You're like, I don't want to agree to that, and I'm still mad about it, and.
Exactly.
And that never works, because that's, if it was the right decision then, it's the right decision now.
Yeah.
Even if you don't want to make it, even if it was a hard choice. There's a difference between a hard choice and a choice that you just shouldn't make.
Right.
There's a huge difference there too.
Yeah.
But and that's part of why mediation is a good thing, but it also can be just a total waste of time.
Mm-hmm.
If you know you're not going to settle
Yeah.
on those terms, and you just absolutely are not, then you're going to have to do the trial. You're going to have to go through more expenses. But obviously, if people could kind of agree on all kinds of things in a marriage,
Mm-hmm.
there'd be a lot less struggle. There'd be a lot less conflict. There'd be a lot less resentment.
And then we can focus on playing the game,
Right.
which is the real thing. That's where conflict is actually. Most people hate conflict.
Right.
The truth is, most people love conflict in the sense that most people love sports, they love video games,
Right.
they love board games, they love card games.
They just want to play it their way.
Because it's safe, structured conflict that everybody agrees upon the rules when it comes to football and other games. When it comes to couples conflict, we've never really fully agreed on the rules, and so
Right.
conflict becomes unsafe because it's unstructured. So the basic structures, we can wrap up with this for time,
Sure.
is that great relationships is kind of the mission and vision of what we do here.
Sure.
The Our Way plan, with all these 10 key areas,
Mhm.
is the overarching umbrella of how we make the vision happen. And then under each one of these areas are key strategies such as the deep listening solution,
Right.
or how to bridge the gender gap by learning how to effectively use how to effectively speak Manglish and speak Womanese,
Sure.
of
Perfect.
how to, how do we do step family transitions and dynamics. There's so many specific skill sets. How do we do
Making sure you have the right
formulas,
tool, like you talked about.
right
Ed
tools
and
for
Emily.
creating trust and intimacy? What are the I use a lot of formulas and things like that to help people understand these really complex problems in very simple, manageable, practical, in the moment, what can we do strategies.
Right.
So it's not enough that we talk about, well, we need to learn how to communicate better. We get into write down the very mechanics of how do we communicate better.
Sure.
So that we can actually, I want people to know this is what I actually do. I think one of the most common bits of feedback I have when I ask people, what was your previous counseling like?
Mm.
And they'll say, well, the person was nice, but I'm not really sure what I got out of it.
Right.
Or it felt like I was just venting and they were just listening. I'm like, but we never really got any direction. I'm like, well, here it's a lot of direction. It's customized specifically to each couple.
See, and I think
Yeah.
you've got that down. That's one of the things. I've seen you around Utah County. One of the ways I came to find you and talk to you is the chalk bus.
Right. Yeah.
The last thing I wanted to touch on.
Oh yeah.
And I think that's huge for a mental health therapist. You have like that, that really outgoing personality. I'm obviously pretty extroverted. I'll talk to anybody.
Yeah.
And I'll talk to you about anything. And I try not to bore people. I try to look for those cues. Like, this guy has no interest in what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I'm going to shut up and say thank you. Have a good
Right.
day. So I try to do that. Sometimes, you got to watch for those cues
Mhm.
when you're an extrovert.
Right.
But that's one of the things that I really think is really cool, because you're just so community oriented with that chalk bus. I see it around. And so what that is, for the viewers that don't know, if you don't know about the chalk bus, you need to check out the chalk bus.
Yeah, just go to whether you're on Instagram or Facebook, do hashtag chalkbus, and you'll see it all over the place. And what it is, it's an old 1969 Volkswagen hippie bus.
Yeah.
I've had since my wife and I were young and first married in college, and a few years ago I was doing some body work on it and painting some black primer on it, and my daughter was drawing on the sidewalk with chalk.
And you were like,
And
ding.
I'm like, ding. And the idea is
That's
from
brilliant.
there, and it was just kind of a fun idea until I could get a real paint job.
Yeah.
And but it's kind of developed its own little
Kinda got its own little life going.
own little identity,
Yeah.
and I take it around to a lot. Besides just driving it around, there's little chalk baskets on the back where
Yeah.
anybody can draw on it.
And so it's really like this moving piece of artwork. It's such a cool thing.
yeah,
because-
it's a community interactive
Yeah.
mobile
Yeah.
art piece, right? And so everybody gets to be a part of it.
Yeah.
And usually with some cool vintage car, you don't touch someone's
Right.
vintage car. This is a totally opposite.
This is like, it's
I
a vintage
want
old
people
bus,
to
but you want
engage
people
in
to
it.
love it. Yeah.
Which is kind of the whole.
It's made me appreciate
Yeah.
Volkswagens more. I mean, I see Volkswagen
Yeah.
now, and I'm like, man, they're pretty cool.
Yeah, they're
You
fun. They're fun vehicles.
You know,
I mean,
you
it's
see
all
it
about
like-
peace, love, and happiness, baby.
Sure.
I mean, that's
It's
what
the hippie van.
just
sure.
a hippie van, and that's
Sure.
what I'm about. I want people to have peace, love, and happiness
Yeah.
in their life. And,
I think it's a
and
perfect
connection. And
a perfect mesh of not only
Uh-huh.
like your personality and kind of like the whole thing that you're all about. And so I know that's huge for people. But like you were saying, you can't just be the nice guy that people feel like they can talk to and open up their problems. You're not going to walk away with those tools.
right, you still want,
So
yeah. And that's where, going back to your earlier question, of worrying about, well, are we just going to keep going on and on about
Right.
problems?
Right.
The nice thing about getting to resolution of problems is that then I get fired. Okay.
yeah,
And then
and that's your goal. Actually,
that's my goal.
Yeah.
Is that, and I want people to come back like a dentist.
Sure.
Right. Come back for checkups, things like that, where we're doing maintenance and prevention and enhancement. But
But if I don't see you, I know I'm doing good.
right, that's kind of
Because
basically the goal. I want
done
to
exactly
be
what I
fired for the right reason, that we've
Right.
accomplished our goals.
Sure.
Because then that, besides that being ethical for my clients, it's
Sure.
a sound business practice for me. If people are getting good outcomes, they go talk to their friends and family, which means I don't have to spend a lot of time marketing.
Sure.
And that word of mouth is how I run my business. It's
Sure.
a referral business, and so
Well, thank you so much. I think this is great.
pleasure.
I definitely,
Great talking to you, man.
definitely want to do another one.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of things people can learn from, and
yeah, we can talk about any of those topics you want.
yeah, they're great.
Or if
topics.
your viewers have any interest, they can put in the comments on
For
YouTube. Hey, I'd love to hear more about this. Or,
Yeah, please do. Please
Yeah.
let any of the viewers watching let us know what it is you want to know about. If you want to know more about the tools that you need, or if you want to know more about the 5 C's, any things that he's brought up, please comment and reach out to us. Our emails are out there.
And if
Go
they go
ahead
to,
and
if they
give-
go to marriageenvy.com
Yeah,
under my workshops and
under
seminars,
contact.
they can see all the topics that I do talk about.
Sure.
If one of those interests them and they'd like to do
Sure.
a topic on that, if there's a consensus of people have a cluster of hey, we'd like more information
Sure.
on this, let's do a little mini workshop.
Sure.
and
Yeah.
we can
To
talk
close
about
up, let's go ahead and just make sure you give them your contact information one more time, whether it's your phone number or whatever you'd like.
just to make it simple, just marriageenvy.com. All my contact information is there.
Right.
And
And make sure you spell out marriage, then envy, all one word.com. I did a Google search for you this morning and said, how you sometimes you just want to hit the speech, and I said marriage envy, and it took me to marriage.envy.org somewhere,
oh, okay.
like in Nevada or
Yeah.
somewhere, or
News to me, yeah.
I don't know where, where I ended up.
Marriageenvy.com.
Yeah,
Okay.
and so make sure you're going to the right spot. Marriage envy. It's got the orange. You'll probably see a little spot with the chalk bus. You'll know you're at the right spot when you
That's
see the
right.
chalk bus.
It's the only
And when
one.
you see this guy.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so
Okay,
much.
brother. Good seeing you, man.
Good talking
All
to you.
right,
As
my
always.
pleasure. All right. Thanks, guys.